Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Sustainability Advisory Board to order on August 3rd, 2015. We do have quorum tonight. Thank you all for coming. And our first order of business after the call to order is public comment. I'm guessing we have none. And the next item is approved minutes from the April 6th meeting. Did you all have a chance to look those over? Entertain a motion.
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of approval of the minutes from April 6th, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Wow, we're moving right along. Kathy, it's going to be your turn now. We're going to be working on the ICLEI milestone number 2, and we're very fortunate that we have Kathy with us tonight to help us with that.
Thank you. I think I'm on, right?
Yeah, you should be. And they're pretty sensitive, so.
I'm going to pass around some papers. What I did is I put together the background information from milestone report number 1. So as we talk about setting targets, which was what I was charged with doing some research on, reduction targets, I thought that it would be helpful to have this information in front of you. As you can see that there were two assessments done. One was a community-wide inventory. Those were 2011 and 12. Base year was 2007. And the second one was done for local facilities and operations. And that one was also a base year 2007. It was done at an earlier time, 2009. And, sorry, went the wrong way. Sorry. So as you can see, how it was split up, I've got it broken out for the community-wide between commercial, transportation, industrial, and residential and waste. And that's the way it's broken out in the report. You can see that the largest contributors are commercial and transportation. And the commercial does include schools and homes of 3 or more meters. So it includes the apartment buildings, those kind of facilities. Okay. The baseline inventory, that was a much smaller number. And that's 25,487 metric tons of carbon equivalent. And that is the thing that we're applying everything to, no matter what it was generated, be it therms or kilowatt hours or gallons of gasoline. It was brought to the equivalent carbon. So that's just some background information. And I also put together some thoughts on maybe that we can do for targeting, and I'm going to pass that out as well as you're thinking about this. So again, at the end of milestone number 1, targets, a forecast was put together based on business as usual scenario. And as far as I could tell, what that means is future emission growth that would occur if the 2007 per capita greenhouse gas emissions intensity remained the same for every year in the future, with the city population growing according to current projections. So as you can see, the base year was 1,476,056 metric tons, and that is based on the community-wide. And the forecast...
1 million, you mean?
What?
1 million?
1 million, yep. 1,476,056 metric tons. I've got to turn this off. Sorry.
And then Kathy or Liz or somebody remind me, the municipal operations, is that included in the community-wide?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Oh, it is included? Maybe that's where some of the difference is coming in. There was some difference, and I don't want to really dwell upon that right now. I think right now we can just look at the big numbers. I'm going to have to talk to Elizabeth more about the summary page that was in there. So as we're setting targets, we should be looking at short, mid, and long term according to ICLEI. And things that we should consider when setting targets are to start with the science, inspire friendly competition, and that means, what are the neighboring communities doing? And then consider seeking adoption targets, that would be milestone number 2, and climate action plan concurrently, which would be 3. Though the intent of milestone number 2 was to set the targets and then start thinking about milestone number 3. And as I did the research, I had started first with what actually is out there. And there is some international national agreements. One is the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, which Oshkosh did sign. And that agreement is that they signed on for 7% below the 1990 levels by 2012. And that's what that agreement actually was, the target. There's the Kyoto Agreement, that one for the United States, which is non-binding because the United States never did sign the Kyoto Agreement. That's 70% below the 1990 levels by 2012. There's the G8 nations, which the United States is part of, and that's 50% below the 1990 levels by 2050. There's been a lot of work in California, which is where ICLEI is located. And so I did put some of the California initiatives that were here that they had looked at. And that was to reduce to 2000 levels by 2010, 1990 levels by 2020, and 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. So what California is saying is that we will start out lower, but we'll keep reducing and working toward the ultimate goal. And then California AB 32 was to reduce the 1990 levels by 2020. ICLEI does have, in their guidebook, they do have the different California local governments targets. That I do have. They just have a sample of them. So if we think back to ICLEI, I did contact ICLEI. I could not find the targets on their website of what we should be doing. And their suggestion was, what they said other communities were doing, was to reduce the targets or do the short-term target of 20 to 30%. And they said 2020 to 2035. What they didn't tell me was what the base year was. So are we looking at 10-year target there, or are we looking at longer targets? I had thought at the time it might be 2010. I never got a response back on the email. And then they told me to look at long-term targets of 50 to 80% by 2050, and I think that's coming back from the science, the different national agreements that are out there, international agreements, and that would be 80%. The guidance manual, I did read their guidance manual, and they said to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions a minimum of 80% below the 1990 levels in order to stabilize the Earth's climate. And that is actually, again, that's based on science. And to avoid the most dangerous future climate change scenarios, the emissions would need to be reduced by 25 to 40% below the 1990 levels by 2020. And what they have actually been talking about is an 80% by 1990 levels. And I don't think that's 2020, that's actually 2050 is what they're looking at. U.S. would actually have to be 95% if you look at the international agreements, and that's based on the per capita, emissions per capita. We're a little bit higher than some of the other countries. So ICLEI does recommend a community-wide reduction target of 80 to 90%, 95% from 2015 baseline to 2050. So that's actually what they are recommending, and that's based on science. And that city operations should do the same because they should be leading by example. There was a little bit of information on the website about other ICLEI communities. So Columbus, Ohio, which is much, much larger than Oshkosh, they did a 5-year plan where they were looking at 20% below baseline. The city internal was 30% by 2020 and 40% by 2030. I did talk to Madison. Madison is an ICLEI community. They have done a sustainability plan. Their sustainability plan goes much further than just energy. It encompasses everything. They do an inventory, a baseline inventory every 2 years. They have UW-Madison helping them with that. They use the 2008 baseline, and they're looking at 50% reduction by 2030, applying to both the public and private sector. And then I put down some sub goals that they had that I found within their plan in the information sheet. For example, 25% of electricity, heating, and transportation energy from clean energy sources by 2025. I'm thinking that probably is part of the 25-25 state initiative. That's probably where that comes from, but it doesn't say 40% emissions reduction by vehicle by 2030. And an overall city goal of 80% reduction by 2050 is what they had told me verbally. And again, that's going back to the international targets in science. Wisconsin actually had the energy independent communities, and this was something that was done in the late 2000s, around 2009. Many communities passed resolutions and became partners. There were actually 140 communities in the state. Some, not all of them passed resolutions, but they all were either working on it, serious about it. What that was about was 25% of your energy should be by renewables by 2025. And it was actually a combination. It was actually energy efficiency reductions and looking at renewables, so it wasn't exactly all renewables. I looked at some of them in more detail. Kaukauna was one community in our area that actually signed on and did some work. Then I started calling some neighboring communities to see what neighboring communities had done. I looked at the city of Neenah. They have really not set any targets, but they are working on energy reduction. They did set a target of 25% renewables by 2025, but I couldn't find any more information out about that. City of Kaukauna, as I mentioned, was one that signed on. They actually had a grant in around 2009 to actually look into it in more detail, and they did do a plan for their 25-25 and how they were going to achieve that. They used a base year of 2009. They were looking at, it looked like they were looking at carbon reductions of 24%. They actually went above, on the renewables, they actually went to 34% because they were already doing a lot of renewables already because they have their own utilities and they do water there, hydropower there. I talked to the city of Appleton, and they had done a 10% reduction. They had done a 3-year target earlier, but they haven't said anything beyond that, though they do have a very nice sustainability plan where they are working on a number of different initiatives.
You know, there's a lot of difference when you use a 2005 base year or you use a 2012 base year.
Or at 1990.
So Appleton used a 2005 base year.
Yes.
So that doesn't seem like they did much.
Well, they told me that they were looking at things that they could easily do. Yeah. And it's beyond their 3-year now, so I put down the population so you can kind of get an idea of what the communities were. I looked at the 2010 population, so what you're seeing is the census. I just looked on the website so that you could get an idea of, well, how does this community compare to Oshkosh? And Oshkosh, I think in 2010 was about 67,000. So I just put those down as just a comparison for you. But Appleton definitely has a sustainability plan. It's a very nice plan. They are
They have a sustainability plan too. That's a good plan.
Yeah, they are a green tier community. Appleton is.
I'm sorry, Kathy, say that again?
Appleton is a green tier community. So I had gotten a copy of some goals that they were setting, but they were based on points toward the green tier. I found some goals in there that by 2025, it would be energy consumption of city facilities on a unit basis would be 25% less than the baseline year of 2005. So there are some goals in the report if you read through the fine print. 2025 energy consumption, let's see. That looks like the same one, just copied it over.
Well, the first one is city facilities, the second one is overall.
Is it overall?
Yeah, per
Okay.
capita.
Okay, thank you. 2030 city operations will reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 25%. Work to implement a regional policy to reduce the percentage of commute trips by single occupancy vehicles by 10%. So they had some actual goals in here on how they were going to achieve some of these things. There's a lot more goals in there and how they would achieve these as well. So work with community partners to reduce per household vehicle miles traveled by 25%. So just some ideas. I did talk to Outagamie County as well, and Outagamie County doesn't have any targets set, though they are working to reduce energy consumption. Again, you know, they are working on it. I don't believe City of Menasha has any targets, so I do know that they have a baseline set, but I did not talk to Menasha today. Town of Menasha, I did talk to them. They have no targets set, though I know they're working to reduce energy consumption. I looked at the city of La Crosse. I tried to just take some of the ones that I thought were not too far from our Oshkosh's size. And city of La Crosse actually had a sustainable indicator report, which was very nice. It was very graphical. And I took some of the numbers off of there that had to do with energy consumption. So they had looked at electricity. Their base year again was 2007. They were looking at kilowatt hours, so it's a little different unit. So it was 25% less by 2025 for municipal facilities, and this was all municipal facilities. Natural gas was 25% less. The unit was the therms by 2025, base year of 2007. And then they had diesel gasoline, 25% less by 2025 for municipal facilities. And they had MTU in there, and I wasn't sure what MTU was. Base year of 2008, and that was based on gallons, so gallon reduction. So those are some of the things that I did find.
I'm
Marathon
curious.
Technical.
What?
Marathon Technical University. It's probably their tech school.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not real familiar with La Crosse. So that's the research I was able to do.
Is La Crosse a member of ICLEI? Do we know?
I don't know, I did,
I'm guessing they're probably not, because then they probably would have done what we did and converted to all the equivalency carbon units, right?
I did email ICLEI and ask them who was a member in Wisconsin. I did not get a reply back on my email. I asked them last week, or Friday, so they might not have gotten around to replying yet.
That's probably it.
When we started this, we were using Eau Claire as sort of a thing. So it'd be nice to look into what they're doing now.
I can do that. So I guess your baseline is 2007. It's 2015 now. This report will be approved in 2016. Well, it'll be 2015 now, approved in 2016, probably beginning of 2016, your targets. You're supposed to set a target for target year of 2017. That doesn't give you a lot of time to work on things, so I would suggest that a short-term target be set that would be lower, and maybe then working toward a long-term target, and set some intermediate so that you can actually have make some progress that you can base, how are we doing toward that.
Okay.
But 2007 seems so far away. It seems like we should do an inventory, that what we need is an inventory that's updated.
Well, 2017 is only 15 months away.
But it's so far away from 2007 when we did our baseline last time, is what you mean, right?
What I'm saying
I'm sure you've made progress. I would think you'd made progress toward your goal.
An MTU is a maximum transmission unit.
Actually, I think it's their.
It's their transit system, I think. La Crosse
Is it?
Municipal Transit.
Okay, MTU stands for a lot of things.
It does.
Yeah, it does. And I'm assuming, just in context, probably the municipal transit
That would make sense.
something.
That would make sense. They did have it, specifically, mentioned.
As far as the short-term goal is concerned, I think we need to find out where we are since 2007 first and see where we want to go. I think that was one of our goals, wasn't it, to kind of see?
To compare and see how much we've already attained of what the goal that we didn't set yet, right?
Exactly.
That came out funny, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, then we know what we, can set for 2017, unless that would take too long, and it'd already be 2017 by the time we'd set it.
The community-wide you did the assessment for community-wide in 2013, Elizabeth?
I started here in 2011, and that was one of the first projects I worked on, and it took about a year to wrap it up. And there had been probably a year and a half or 2 years already put into it. So it would be quite a lengthy process to update the inventory that we currently have. But there's that option.
I don't think we necessarily have to update it, or just maybe see what we've done and kind of estimate what percentage that would reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by. Is that possible? Not really? Okay.
I think, too, some of those were you went into multiple years. So didn't you, when you did the community-wide, you went up to 2010, didn't you? It was every year?
Yeah, I believe we went through 2011 with the community-wide analysis, but it would be going back and taking a look at municipal operations over the same time.
Yeah, municipal operations was more than 1 year as well.
We did 3 or 4.
I think it might have been 6, 7, and 8, if I remember right.
We had data on subsequent years.
Correct.
Can we assume any kind of a pattern from that, a graph line?
But we also had a massive recession that likely impacted usage, which we saw in the community-wide analysis that are...
Would have impacted it positively as far as...
Correct, yes, that is true.
So we may
It would have
assume-
reduced- Yeah, I think Kathy, you ran that number at the last meeting we discussed.
Yeah.
Where in, I think, 2011, we actually, was it 2.5% reduction?
It might have been even more than that, because it significantly impacted it. I mean, you could definitely see it. It wasn't straight line, it was definitely down.
You can see that in our graphs, because we had that in our inventory, didn't we?
Right.
We had where you saw it, going up, 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 and then down, and then a slight increase, or, sometimes decrease, depending on what we were looking at.
I'll pass this around. I got a copy of the report, so you can kind of see what you're talking about for the decrease that was caused by the recession.
We can probably just assume another recession.
Based on your research, Kathy, is that your recommendation is for us to take a look at redoing that inventory? Do you think it would have value to go through that process? Kind of putting you on the spot here, so you don't have to say yes or no at them.
Well, it's hard to set a target when you don't know exactly where you were, or where you are.
Where you are, right.
I mean, I would still use that as the base year. I don't think that's a problem. I would still use it as a base year.
The 2007?
Yeah. A base year,
If you use it as a base year, you can have a higher number. You can show a higher number of, that you're reducing, which is, that's kind of,
not really, because other communities, if you look at the Kyoto Protocol and the they're looking at 1990, so they're going back to 1990 as their base year. It's whatever you base your on. It's not, it's moving forward and saying, I'm going to look at that base year. So it's not, if you wouldn't want to, I don't think 2007 is a bad base year. I think that would be fine to use 2007 as your base year. You just don't know how far down the road, how much improvement you've made with your changes. And the other thing is, the economy did impact it. I think the economy is improving. So, you want a realistic number, too.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, it doesn't necessarily matter the base year that we choose, maybe perhaps the target year is what needs to be moved?
It might be the target year.
So are these real numbers?
So if we were to move the target year out to 2020 or 2023, 22, 25, whatever, yeah, just the farther out we go, the longer we would have to attain that, so we'd want to lower our target, or raise our target, so that we have lower emissions, yeah.
You'd want to raise your target.
Can't we just go with 80% in 2050?
You can do that too, but that's not very achievable if you say, I'm going to get it. You need to set interim
need to have
targets so
interims,
that
yeah.
you know if you're going to be making your goal and how you're doing on your progress towards your goal.
A lot of these other ones which you were showing, which had the 2050 target, if they started from 1990, we've, as a society, at least a civilized society, have made progress between 1990 and 2007. So per capita, I think we've already reduced, auto emissions on the average for the cars in 1990 versus 2007 is quite substantially different.
Now remember when you're talking base here, so
Right.
you got population gains. So even if you reduced the per capita, you have population gains. And so when you're saying I'm going to reduce my level below the 1990 base year, it's that base year. So even though your admissions have gone up every year, you're going to have, your energy usage probably has gone up every year as well.
Right.
Because the per capita has increased.
Yeah.
I agree with that,
Or
but
the
I'm just saying,
population.
because of the other worldwide standards if that starts back in 1990 versus if we're starting now at 2007, we've already built into ours at 2007, we're already more efficient at 2007 versus the people in 1990.
Supposedly, but maybe not.
But
We
Not
use more
necessarily.
electricity, I would say, probably with all our devices and.
Well, and if you think back to what,
More efficient. Think of what your computer was using in 1990, if you had a computer, and how much energy that was using versus now the laptop or whatever just working on batteries. A reduction of 80% from 1990 to try and get an 80% reduction from 2007 is going to be a lot more difficult than an 80% reduction from 1990,
Maybe,
is what
yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And
if you
can
think back
see-
to when, and I don't remember, Bob, if you were here when Dick Smith spoke to us about the Citizens Climate Lobby and all the statistics he shared with us at that time. Were you here?
I don't recall.
Okay, and I know you weren't, Kathy, and that's unfortunate because it was a really good presentation, which I do have a copy of, which I can share with you. But because everything's accelerating so rapidly, as far as the greenhouse gas emissions and how much damage that's doing, I think we need to have use our most current base year that we can, which in our case is 2007, but then be very aggressive with our reductions. And I was kind of joking, Kathy, about 80% by 2050. Yes, definitely we need to have, but maybe we do need to go with like 2018 and 2021 and 2024 and, have many along the way that we can tackle one at a time, but they do need to be very assertive to do us a lot of good.
How
aggressive.
do you know if you meet your target? What do you have to do? Then you do the base.
Then you can see where you are toward your target.
So it's better not
So
to
we
do
haven't-
one now,
Right.
unless we're going to be
Exactly.
forced to do it, to see
Right.
if we meet.
So we need to figure out when we want to do that. And that's when we know we have our short-term year, or goal, or whatever, and then we can establish, we can see where we're at. I mean, it says, I found out where it says what the drop was between 2008, 2009. Oshkosh saw a 38,898 metric ton decline, which equates to 3% drop in emissions, just between those 2 years. So that'd already be 3%, 2008 and 2009
Was that
The
at the height
recession
of the
really-
recession?
hit. Yeah. And it's showing from 2009 to 2010 a slight increase, but where it's gone since then.
So have we updated the inventory to 2010? Because these charts seem to show.
We have data available to 2010, yes, but the baseline year was 2007.
Yep. We even have data from 2006, it looks like, and our total emissions over time.
And the municipal operations, remember, were done earlier. So that was, I think it was
Okay.
6, 7, and 8 was done.
That's probably why.
So we have a timeline here somewhere for this whole project. What's the next thing on our timeline? Wow, look, we're half done already. Looking at the timeline.
Well, we do have to think about setting our targets.
What are we setting these targets for? Is this the city of Oshkosh government? Is this, who are we setting targets for?
There are two separate things that we've inventoried. One is the municipal usage of everything, and one is the community usage of everything. Do you have a copy of the, I know you got it as a council member, Tom, a copy of the inventory when it was done? Because that explained everything pretty completely.
It might have, as if it was done, when was that done?
Is this what you mean? This,
Yeah, it was approved in 12 or 13.
Yeah, but the question I have is who are we setting targets for? And the targets that we set, what targets can we set that we can actually have an impact on?
Well, we can definitely have an impact on municipal. Not. I mean, that's our choice. We're a city entity, and we can work with the city to have municipal impact. We can, through education outreach and incentivizing, probably, we can probably have an impact community-wide. A lot of it is just making people aware of things.
And some transportation as well.
Well, because I'm looking at the list of the email that Samara sent, and I'm looking at things that, municipal, converting streetlights to LEDs, we're already in process of doing that.
Right. Been doing that for several years now.
Streetlights timing to address low traffic volume times, that's being done. We have purchased some hybrid buses. We've converted our trash fleet and many of our vehicles over to CNG.
Many of those things that, Tom, have been done since 2007, so they aren't showing in our baseline, so they will, all of those will help us attain whatever target we set now.
I understand that, but it appears that we've addressed the low-hanging fruit. I mean, what else can we do?
I think that's kind of what we're here to decide, isn't it?
And the word incentivized came up earlier. Incentivized means money. Where are we going to get the money to do this?
It can also be recognition. There's many ways to incentivize.
Exactly, especially if you're talking about internal departments. If they set like a game, so to speak, who can do more of this or who can come up with these better suggestions. And it's an incentive just by the recognition.
No,
Maybe it's
I understand that, but really what we're looking at is many of these things are, when I look at it is improvements to buildings and that type of thing, small business, right, submit an award grant that would pay someone to assist small business with analysis of utility bills. Public service already has that, don't they?
I think they do that for residents. Do they do that for businesses as well?
Yeah. They actually work with, the public service actually works with organizations to help them lower their usage during peak hours.
I know we
But-
had some things in our sustainability plan, some other ideas too. I know you said this, obviously the street lights they've been working on, because they already did the traffic lights and everything, as far as LED lights, but in our sustainability plan, we also talked about parks, athletic fields, Leach Amphitheater, did we do those as well? Or where can we go with that? There's consider efficiency standards for outdoor lighting ordinances for all new construction and existing building lighting retrofits. I think probably some more things we can do for that. I mean, we're doing that with our detention basins and different things, creating standards. I think maybe that's something we could do with lighting. Electricity.
Create standards, you also increase costs.
You're assuming that.
It reduces electricity costs though too over time. I mean, you might have an initial cost, but then you're going to have, over the life of your business, less
Depends
cost.
upon the payback.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
But for- I mean,
I'm
we're talking
a
lighting
business person.
efficiency
I
and stuff.
understand payback and everything else, and as a business person, I also understand that businesses, that we need businesses to thrive in this community and to come to it. And and again, I can catch all sorts of dirty crusties right now looking at me, but we have to have, yes, we have to have an environmental protection, but we also have to have a vital community as well.
Exactly.
And I think
And
those
so,
go
the-
hand in
so,
hand.
so, but how do we go about doing this? And I get back to my original question. If we're going, if we as the city are going to set something, then we have to set a target that we can control. And that we can have ability to change over time. But to go and set a target out there for, while, yeah, it's all well and good to do, we have no authority to.
No, that's called
Push it.
education and outreach, and that's what this sustainability board is all about. We don't have any authority. That's
Or
what
any
we
budget.
do, education and outreach.
Nor does any other board or commission have a budget.
Right.
That was discussed at previous meetings, so
The education and outreach, in my mind, is one of the biggest things we need to work on to get the overall community as individuals to buy into this. We can say everything we want, but if the person just keeps on, if the average individual keeps on using a regular filament light bulbs in their house, it's not going to change anything. Or if they won't get another refrigerator early just to save a couple pennies. Light bulbs, that can mean a lot.
Or they won't know the different resources that are out there, like Wisconsin Public Service, doing those updates for you and different things.
Well, that comes in with your bill every month, though.
Mm-hmm.
Get those flyers with your bill.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the water utility.
Except if you do it online, saving paper. Mine pay automatically every month. I just get an email that says it's been scheduled.
Yeah, I guess what we really have to decide at this point is, what are we going to do about our milestone to, what's our next step, and when are we going to do that? Do we want to take this back to the subcommittee and have them have a meeting? This would be our ICLEI subcommittee.
Well, both subcommittees should really address it, right? Because one is strategies.
Well, yes, and we need to collaborate, definitely, and we've been doing that just with the way we've been having our subcommittee meetings. But I guess what I'm asking is there anything at this point, at this meeting, that we can actually do, or does this need to go back to the subcommittee for additional study?
Well, it says in our timeline, we wanted to set our first target at this meeting, I think, didn't it?
Yeah.
So what are you recommending, Kathy, for us?
It's totally up to you.
Really?
Yes, it is.
You're not
Have any
making a
thoughts, Liz, or?
I am not
Well,
making a
the
recommendation.
only thought and recommendation I have for the committee is, the city council did approve the U.S. Mayor's Climate Protection Agreement, and we did sign on to that as a community, which is 7% reduction below 1990 levels by 2012. I understand that we're past 2012 at this point, so that, may be null and void, I'm not sure. But I think it's a good starting point for the short-term target that Kathy suggested. And then looking at, as a subcommittee, maybe revisiting this and bringing it back to the next full board meeting. I am just hearing that I don't.
It was a 7% reduction from when, but with the target of hitting it at 2012, but when was the?
1990 was the original year.
There's been a lot of numbers thrown
I know,
around. I'm
there's a
like,
lot of, and that's why I think it's too, I'm just hearing that we don't have consensus right now, and I'd be reluctant to make, have the board make a motion and agree upon something. I think, this really needs to be thought through well before we move forward. I think there needs to be a little more digestion of the information before we move forward.
We have a lot of information for our 2007 baseline. How difficult would it be to try and go back in history to find out where we were back in 1990? I mean...
I would guess that near to impossible.
No,
Just because records at the municipal level aren't probably detailed all the way back to 1990. I think typically, don't they do a clearinghouse every... We'd have to know exactly how many miles our vehicle fleet was traveling, the type of vehicles we had at that time. I mean, the amount of staff time.
I understand. That's all I'm asking. How difficult?
We're going to do it. Let's get the updated
Well,
data, not the old data. Who cares?
As I can tell, going back to 1990, based on some discussions that we've had at Long Range Finance Committee, I would agree with what Liz is saying. We would not have inventories of fleet vehicles, of what we had in the fleet, and the mileage traveled and everything. I don't even know how far back we could even bring that up.
Well, if I'm understanding this correctly, Kathy, we need to do two things. We need to decide on our target years that we'll need to do updated inventories, and we need to decide what percent reduction we hope to have attained by those dates, right? By those years.
And thirdly, I would say also we should have, is identify who we're setting the target for, which entity we're setting the target for.
And I guess to answer that, I would say that we're setting the target both for the municipal operations and the community as a whole. And, you made the point that municipal operations are a little more easily attainable just because we have control over that community-wide. That's a little more difficult to regulate.
It's less control and more influence, hopefully.
Correct. And I would say as well, just the information that I have read, it seems like communities that are successful with achieving community-wide reductions, they start at the municipal level first, they make progress, and then they typically require community entities to start following the direction that the municipal organization has taken.
What's the relationship of renewables to greenhouse gas reductions? I mean, some communities say 25% increase in renewables, and others say 25% reduction in greenhouse. It seems to me renewables is more measurable, easily measurable. But I don't know. What would you say the relationship is?
I don't think you can. Yeah, and there hasn't been a strategic energy. I've just asked the state that question about renewables for another project, and there was not, we used to get the information, that strategic energy assessment has not been done since 2010.
But is there a relationship? There is a relationship between renewables and greenhouse gas.
Renewables would have less, because, if you're
Right.
using wind, for example, that would have less than
That's the strategy.
a
for
natural gas
reducing.
peaking plant.
Wind, solar, and hydro.
Right.
But then if you go biomass, that's different, especially if you're burning wood products or something, you're still getting the greenhouse gas off of that. But it's not as free, so to speak, as a
And
solar
methane.
wind or wind.
You could do a landfill too with the methane.
Well, right, but that's coming off, you aren't putting anything out on it, but you are burning it, yes.
Okay, so, is what we've decided to send this back to the ICLEI subcommittee and bring it back at our next full meeting with date, percentage recommendations, and clarification on who this will be affecting, essentially, right? Did that make sense, Tom? Did I say that clearly enough, or?
Yeah, now the question is,
Okay.
but then and so I assume subcommittees would be the first week in September, and we would then be acting on this in October.
That's correct.
I'm just kind of looking at this time frame where we're at. That's, okay, you're going to bring it to council in January, okay, because October and November, council is going to be a little bit busy. And
No, we weren't going to bother you then.
No,
We
and
know
I would,
you're a
and I
little
would
busy.
probably suggest that when this comes forward, that maybe another workshop might be in order.
Would
do
you
this.
suggest that perhaps before the SAB even goes about setting the target and moving forward with the report, that perhaps we have a workshop prior to that?
Maybe after the subcommittee comes forward with a recommendation, and then we could determine kind of, I don't want to schedule it during the budget session, but it might be beneficial to do it rather quickly around the budgeting, because obviously we're going to be, and part of the budget is is not pushing things out, but looking, we do look 5 years out in our budgeting, as well as our capital improvement, our capital plans. We've got a 5-year plan, but the first 2 years of it are relatively static, so yeah, I would suggest we probably should bring this to get buy-in up front.
Okay.
We're going to have survey results next month too, right? No? Wait, October was that? Or no, that is September. Okay. No.
I think before we survey the community, we should maybe have a little more of a clear thought out strategy and approach.
Okay.
It doesn't make, Do you agree or disagree?
I don't remember what it was going to include, so.
I don't get what Samara's doing here. She came up with some recommendations. Are we not working on our plan and using the plan and updating the plan where it needs updating? So then what are these things that she's
She
come
was
up with?
suggesting strategies that could be incorporated into a climate action plan that would help reduce overall emissions. That was my understanding of the assignment that was given at the last subcommittee meeting. And then
So we
those,
still have to put together a climate action plan.
before we can even start working on the reductions.
Yeah. So who's doing that?
The committee and staff.
Isn't that all part of milestone 3?
That's milestone 3. We're still on milestone 2. So first we have to set a target, and then we have to come up with the strategies that we're going to implement in order to reach that reduction target. And each strategy is going to come along with a estimated level of reduction.
So this isn't really something we're all supposed to be doing, which he did.
Well, it was something that was given out as an assignment, but
Well, I understood it as an assignment for the ICLEI subcommittee.
Okay.
Is that correct?
maybe I was mistaken.
You were hopeful.
I was hopeful. Expectation.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we're ready to move on? Correct? Any more?
Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Can someone pass my report?
Oh, is this hers?
Is that it? Yeah.
Whose is this?
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is to develop a detention basin planting model ordinance. Boy, that was a mouthful. And I think we basically are just having discussion on whether or not we want to do this, not what it will entail. And it would probably go to a subcommittee for writing and then come back to the full board. So I believe we've kind of covered this during subcommittee meetings too, so you're probably all on the same page as far as the fact that we want, have done some basic legwork on this already. We have some information. And we did, basically, I believe during our workshop, we were encouraged to go ahead and do this, so I'm just assuming there's no objection to going ahead and sending this to the subcommittee, and are we all in agreement on
And what
that?
subcommittee, the Climate Action's doing this?
I think this would go to government action.
Government.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Yeah, that, I think
And
we
what's
decided that
government
it,
action? Who's on that?
oh, you are, I'm sure.
That was
I know, I'm on.
Jan.
Oh, we haven't met?
I am, no, not officially, no.
Yeah, we
Well,
did.
we did at the
Yeah.
last subcommittee meeting, it was part of that, yeah.
Well, I would say that they're doing a very good job with native plantings around these detention basins, and they look beautiful.
But we do want to establish a policy of, just to make the whole process easier and more equitable, we want to make sure that there is a policy in place.
You remember back
So
to
that
the
if-
workshop that we had with
Planning.
Plan Commission? Basically, the way that our community is operated, private development, if it's within what is known as the plan development overlay, or if it's plan development,
Oh, yeah.
then there's a condition that's put on those developments that require you to put native plantings when you install the detention basin. And if you're just a private business owner not within a planned development, then you're not required to do any native plantings or plantings at all around the detention basin. So this would basically make it part of the city's ordinance to require, regardless of whether it's within a planned development or not.
Good idea.
And I think that was the direction we heard from Plan Commission. They wanted an ordinance that would provide flexibility and focus on both the aesthetic standpoint and the environmental standpoint, making sure that we're benefiting both.
Okay, well, I'm willing to start the process and develop a draft.
Great,
Thanks, Jan.
yeah.
Excellent.
And the resources that were provided in the memo were directly given by senior staff and the Department of Public Works. The Public Works Department is obviously much more acquainted with our stormwater management strategies in the community, so I would defer to them as kind of the experts in this.
Are they willing to make a draft?
I think they're willing to support efforts. I don't know if they have taken it up themselves. It's kind of been a planning initiative incorporating into the zoning code.
Liz, were you able to, I emailed you, ask about that second one from Farmington? Were you able to find out if that link I wasn't able to get to?
Oh, I noticed that too, but if you actually go to the planning website, or the planning page, if you go back a couple of backslashes in the actual link, if you go to the planning community development, and then they have a link to design guidelines. For some reason, it doesn't automatically pop up.
It rerouted me.
Did it reroute
It
you?
did,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I was able to pull the whole web page up, and
And then
I
you
think it's-
could find it, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a rather large document.
yeah, it's-
And the difference is that's a policy guideline versus an actual ordinance, so it's trying to incorporate the policy guidelines into an actual.
Right, with the City of Brookfield one, I actually was able to talk to the person that drafted it, when he was Bittner with Brookfield. So he and I were going over it and some of, what went into it and what he did, and a couple of his recommendations for changing things from what was originally in there.
Okay.
So I'll be able to help out with the resource on that as well.
Great.
Super. Well, that one's practically done already then. And moving on, the Zoological Conservation Carnival, shown on our agenda, and you have the chance to read the email that I got from the president of the Oshkosh Zoological Society. She had contacted me last year, just for a little background on this, about a day before. It kind of came up at the last minute, and we didn't have time to plan to participate. But this is very much like what we do at Birdfest or at Farmers Market, or, we could limit ourselves to just the display that we normally use. Or, as Mamuna had mentioned in her letter, in her email here, we could also go ahead and provide some kind of children's activity or something and we have a volunteer for that.
I have an idea.
Oh, right.
We talked about this before for the farmer's market, having some kind of activity or some kind of thing for kids to do over there. I think this is an even better place to do that, to try it out. I know Samara's mentioned before having like light switch plates. And I
Switch plate
think,
covers.
yeah, doing a decoration thing there, the stickers, yeah, for light switch plates. I think that would be a great activity for the kids, and I think it would also work really well for our ICLEI mission and trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So I think, kind of going that way with it and having some of that information there about energy efficiency and, I don't know, some of our other stuff there. I think that'd be a good activity. So
I think it would be very nice for us to participate in this, and it is
Yeah.
on Saturday, September 12th, so we would need to establish who's available that day to participate. Okay, I believe I am. I'm hoping Michelle is. She's checking now.
I'm checking. I believe so. Yeah, I'm free.
Nikki, is there any chance you might be able to join us that day?
Yeah, I could join.
That would be fun. Okay, I see that I'm available from 12 till 3, so I can do a second shift on that. It runs from 9 till 3. So maybe if we have 4 people, maybe that can end up doing it, then we could do a couple of shifts with a little overlap. Okay, well then maybe we should plan, let's see, this is already August, isn't it? All righty then.
Where would we get the switch plates?
Like the stickers.
We just need stickers. I actually have a source for that. I'm pretty sure I checked into that before, and I think we got that covered.
I have lots of markers and crayons and different things, so I could bring those.
A lot of just basic art supplies for
Yeah,
kids.
stickers, whatever.
Oh, so it's not the actual plastic, it's just the
No.
It's a sticker to go on top of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, one that
To remember to turn off your light.
just needs to have a little
I was
hole
thinking
cut
like
in
the
it.
actual,
Right in,
like
yeah.
painting it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, maybe the 3 of us should plan to meet, and we can work on that later, but we should probably just plan to have our own little, what would we call that, project meeting? Just to establish what we're going to do and who's going to bring what and everything?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so then I will let Mamuna know that, yes, we would love to do it. It will be Michelle, Nikki, Margie, and maybe we'll find somebody else who's available that day yet. We'll see how everybody's schedules look when they have a chance to
Let me
check.
follow up with you. I believe that morning there's, at the farmer's market, I think it's either the library or the museum, and council is attending some of these, so let me just follow
Okay.
up.
Yeah, let us know. Everybody check your dates for for September 12th. All right, so that's a yes, and I will respond to that.
I'll make sure we have a notice so that we don't get in trouble for any open meetings for that day, too.
Good plan, yes. Okay, then we have subcommittee updates. I do have an announcement under Education and Outreach. There will be a tour of the Oshkosh Digester for anybody who wasn't able to make it last time. It's going to be on Tuesday, September 1st at 3 o'clock p.m. And the location of the Oshkosh Digester is 755 Dempsey, which is, it's a 755 Dempsey Oshkosh Trail. What's the exact
I think it's Dempsey Trail.
Dempsey Trail in Oshkosh,
Yes,
right? Okay.
exactly.
That's what
There was a little bit of a mix-up there with the text, but it's behind the Verve Credit Union on Witzel, and just next to the Campus Services Building at 650 Witzel, so.
And it
It's
can,
up to the water treatment facility as
Yep.
well.
and could be accessed from either Campbell Road or go on down past it and come back on Dempsey Trail, right?
Yep, and anyone who wants to come would want to park on Dempsey Trail because it's a city street. And it's free.
We like that.
It's at 3 p.m.
If anyone is interested in attending this, they can respond to Kathy Thunes, How does she? Tunis, who was with us earlier. Her email address is kthunes@ecwrpc.org. I just realized I should have given that to the TV station earlier. Her phone number is 920-751-4771, extension 6818. So just play your tape back if you need that information again. And again, that's on September 1st, so I think that sounds like fun. Was anybody able to go to the last one? Any of us make it? Okay.
I can't remember.
Must have made quite the impact.
But we've all toured, haven't we all toured the digester? Have
We-
you?
You and I made it to the first one that they did just for us quite a while ago, and Michelle wasn't able to come that day because she already knew all about it, so. But, yeah, it was during the day, too, I think, wasn't it? Okay, did anybody else have anything under Education and Outreach? Yes, Michelle does.
I do. I just wanted to bring up my notes from the farmer's market again and just see if we wanted to act on any of those, just so we have more material, because people, I know you'd said something, but I don't recall what it was. You said we need cards or some kind of general information about the SAB, because people want to follow up or look at our website or something like that. We need some way for people to get in touch with us or to get involved.
We had talked, Lizzie, about making business cards or something, so we can work on that if you'd like.
Or have something like things we're working on list, how you can help, anything like that.
And our
People
next
wanna
farmer
know.
market date is on August 22nd. And that will be Michelle, Margie, and Nikki. We're going to party. If anybody else would care to join us, if they're available, they're more than welcome.
And I may have to be there just in the morning because now there's going to be a family get-together I have to go to in the afternoon, so.
Okay, well, it only lasts until 12. We can pack up at 12 anyway, for the farmer's market.
I might have to leave a little bit before that, but.
You are now?
I think so.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, we'll just add you
Let me double
to
check, I'm
that.
pretty sure I am.
Okay, August 22nd. Okay. Oh,
Did also want to mention that our Sustainable Oshkosh website has gone active, so that is now available for viewers to take a look at and check out and get more information. So
awesome.
thanks to Samara for all her work on that, and IT for their timely response as well.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else under Education and Outreach? Okay, government action, obviously. We know that we will be meeting, at our next meeting, we will be discussing a detention basin planting model ordinance. Whew, we got to think of a real short name for
It says
that.
here in this memo that we're willingness to partner with staff to develop a model ordinance. What staff is that? Planning staff or public works?
I think it's probably Lizzie, but we can also probably tap into some, if we have questions or need some advice from Stormwater Utility also.
Well, they'll
So,
review it.
yeah.
I mean, I'm going to take this pretty much out of a standard ordinance somebody has, right?
Right, it's always a good starting point, yeah. And then at our next subcommittee meeting, ICLEI will be discussing, oh, I'm sorry, that was all for government action, right? And then at our
Liz,
next
I just
meeting,
pulled up Sustainable Oshkosh and
I noticed that too. What browser are you using? Chrome?
Safari,
whatever's loaded on the tablet, so, okay. All right.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I talked to Jason this morning about that the link wasn't, yeah, depending on what browser you're using. I was using Chrome, which didn't load it at all.
How do you know what browser you're using?
Whatever icon you click on your desktop, if you're using like Internet Explorer or Google Chrome or
Firefox.
Safari,
there's all
or,
kinds of different ones. Do you use the little E icon or?
I use AOL.
Okay. That would be your browser then, I think.
That's my browser?
I don't know.
You know what
I don't
else is browser?
Does it come?
It's from getting the discs in the mail.
Yeah.
check it and see if it works, and if it does, it doesn't matter.
Actually, I do
Okay.
use an email.
Okay, so Internet Explorer.
I've used your computer, I'm pretty sure you use an Explorer. Okay, and then the ICLEI subcommittee meeting will be all about Milestone 2 and establishing guidelines to bring back to this board in October.
So why aren't we meet, oh, because of Labor Day.
That's a very good point you just made. Yeah.
Our next full meeting of the board will be on Monday, October 5th, but we will have to schedule a subcommittee meeting in September. And you're right, it would normally fall on Labor Day, so we should probably,
Subcommittee meetings for all the subcommittees? you mean?
that spirit of collaboration, you know? Yes, it would fall square on Labor Day, so we'll have to establish another day. Maybe we want to do a doodle poll to see what could work for that. You guys are all good with the doodle polls now, right? We got that down? Okay, great. Okay, so our next official meeting is Monday, October 5th, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's do it.